So I heard this really interesting story on the news a few weeks ago. It was really not a news story, but information has recently, had recently come out about this because there was an interview with a journalist, so there was new information. So the basic of the story, in the early 21st century, there was a group commissioned to write a new composition of the Passion according to the Gospel of Mark. This was in commemoration of Johann Sebastian Bach. But the person to write the musical pieces was a Jewish man from Argentina. So this Passion according to the Gospel of Christ has been heard all over the world. It came out in 2010 and it's been received very warmly and it's beautiful. But what is of interest today is there was a journalist that interviewed the man, this Jewish man, that wrote the musical compositions. His name was Osvaldo Golojov. So he was selected to write the musical pieces for the Passion according to the Gospel of Mark. And as the interviewer said, this must have been challenging because you're Jewish and you are writing about the Passion of Christ. And the man said, "You're right. As hard as it was to write the musical pieces, I was challenged even more because I really didn't know Jesus or know the story." He said, "I grew up with the Old Testament. I grew up as a Jew in Argentina, which was a challenge because Argentina is a Catholic country. So I was really involved in understanding my Jewish heritage." And he said, "One of the things I did first is I went to the Jewish rabbis and I said, 'Tell me, what do you think about this man, Jesus?' And they said that it's really, it's not so much about Jesus, it was just the time that he lived in. And the rabbis, we have a Jewish rabbi that said the same thing as Jesus. And his name was Hillel. So I looked up about Hillel, and what he did is he came up with what they considered the Jewish equivalent of the Golden Rule. So Hillel lived, he was born just before Jesus, and he lived until 10, the Common Era. So he died before Jesus was really out with his public ministry. But what he said, the Jewish Golden Rule, that which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. He said this is the whole Torah, the rest is explanation, so go and learn. So what the Jewish rabbis were saying was Jesus was the same. We had Hillel first, and then Jesus expanded on it. And this is what was interesting. When Golojov started to read that New Testament for himself, to prepare to write the Passion, he said, "I realized how transcendentally different the message was. The entire paradigm changed with Jesus. The two most important things I learned were the shifting of the paradigm toward love as the foundation of life, and that you don't have to fear death." Those are the two things that he found when he read the New Testament, that he found that Jesus changed the paradigm of the world. So Wikipedia, I went and I looked about the Golden Rule and I found all this information, and it says there's two ways to state the Golden Rule, and you'll find out when you look through this. One is negative, which is kind of what Hillel said. He said, don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. So if you don't want somebody to hurt you, don't hurt somebody else. And the positive side is to do to others that which we would like them to do to you. So do you see the difference? I think this is what Golojov found when he read the Gospels for the first time. And he came to understand Jesus and Jesus' teaching. The positive form of the Golden Rule, which is what Christ lived, he didn't just preach about it, he lived it, brought up love truly as the foundation of life. And this is transcendently different from the teaching, that which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellows. It was not just do not hurt someone else because you don't want to be hurt. That kind of puts you first, your interests, what's important to you. But Jesus showed us the other side of it, how to put love first, by turning it into doing good for others, not just doing something bad. Do unto others what you would like them to do to you. Jesus quotes this golden rule early in his ministries, in Matthew and Luke. And then later in his ministry, Jesus takes this commandment one step further. He tells his disciples, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love the neighbor as yourself. So when he says the second is like the first, that this is the combination of the greatest commandment. It's not commandment 1, commandment 2. They go together. They are linked. And that is what links us with everyone in the world. We are to love the neighbor as we love the Lord and as we love ourselves. They all go together. And the other thing it does is it puts us on a level playing field. We're not any better than our neighbors. Our neighbors are not any better than us. We are all the same. So when I read those laws from Leviticus, it was in there to love the neighbor as yourself in the midst of all these other laws. And that's what they feel you need to do for God's approval. But yet there's one group of people that sometimes feels they're more important or more chosen over someone else. And that's what we have within the Old Testament. But then when Jesus came with the New Testament, he got rid of that and he said we're all equal. And we're all I love everybody the same, and we're all to treat one another the same. And then Jesus took it one step further, and that's why I read the parable of the Good Samaritan, because the man that knew all the laws, he said, who is our neighbor? And Jesus expounded on who our neighbor is. We assume that the person that was robbed was Jewish. He was in Israel. He was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, so he was probably a Jewish man. And we see the priest went on the other side, the Levite went on the other side, but the Samaritan was the one that helped him. And the Samaritan, interestingly, the Samaritans and the Jews didn't get along at all. They were enemies. The Jews thought they were half-breeds. They didn't have anything to do with the Samaritans. So he was the foreigner, and he was the one that stopped. So in this, Jesus is expanding. Who is our neighbor? It's not just the ones, we're not just neighbors here in this church or in this community or the next farm. We're neighbors with people all over the world. Jesus' parable shows us there are no boundaries to who are our neighbors. So we're not just to love Americans or Canadians. We're supposed to love everyone. And so what this too shows me that how important it is when we give aid to other countries. And sometimes I hear people say, well, we don't have enough here in this country. We should keep all of our aid here. But if we follow Jesus' teachings, we're to give to everyone in need, not just those that we think of our neighbors here in the United States. So I really think this is what Golajah found when he read the New Testament in order to write those passion compositions. Said, I realized how transcendently different the message was. The entire paradigm changed with Jesus because Jesus lived it and he brought it to life. Swedenborg said it in another way, and I like this. He said, true love is feeling the joy in another as joy in yourself. True love is feeling the joy in another as joy in yourself. And we feel this often with children and grandchildren, our parents, our sisters and brothers. We can, and you know, no one either. You can see it up here. They beam when the other one gets something right. You can tell. I mean, I'm sure it's not all the time, Karen. There's the love for one another, and going to play day, you know, and one of them wins a race or something. You feel good for your fellow person. But it's a lot harder to do when it's not someone in your family, when it maybe someone in the field next to you has a bumper crop of wheat and yours doesn't do very good. It's hard to be as happy for that person as you'd be for yourself. Or if someone wins the lottery. Did anyone win last night, that big, huge lottery? Margaret says someone did, so we should be, what?
Florida.
In Florida. So we should be just as happy for that person as if we'd won it ourselves. And you know, I don't know if that's possible, but I think if we take what it said in Leviticus about the neighbor, it said, don't bear a grudge. And don't be jealous, and don't be envious. Try to put those things aside. Maybe we can't feel the joy that we feel if we would have won the lottery, but you can still be happy for them. And you think about how much more joy you would have in your life if every time somebody else had something good happen to them, you felt good about it, instead of thinking, oh, I wish it was me. Why doesn't anything good ever happen to me? So then the next thing that Golajah found that I wanted to comment was the second thing. Do you remember what it was?
You don't have to fear death.
You don't have to fear death. Yes. And as I thought about this, I thought, can I really take myself to that place where I don't have that understanding? Because I grew up in a Christian church. I grew up in a Christian community. We continue in a Christian church. We've kind of always had that assurance that we don't have to fear death. But sometimes it's almost like, I was thinking about when I was in Peru and you couldn't drink the water. You know, everywhere said, don't drink the water. So we had to drink our bottled water all the time. And when I came back, I realized how much I just take that for granted, because here we have good water. You can drink out of the faucet all the time. It's not until you don't have something that you can realize the value of it. So I thought it's important to think about what it'd be like to only have the Old Testament. What would it be like not to know about Jesus? What would it be like not to have all of the beautiful message that's there in the New Testament? It's almost like you have to do without it, to really realize what it's like not to fear death. Because that's another thing that Jesus offered for us when he overcame the hells, when he glorified his humanity, and he promised us that that is also available to us, and we don't need to fear death. My last subject here is one of the tenets of Swedenborg's teaching that really pulls me into this church and means so much to me is that there are different paths to salvation. And Eric was talking about this morning, there are different ways. We've got the golden rule. God offered that in all religious traditions. And that is important to me, that God reaches out to everyone in the way that they can receive it. But I think one of the differences and one of the blessings that we have in this church is within that, it's a both and. Yes, it is available to us, and we have Jesus Christ to show us how to live. Some traditions are able to open up to different ways, but they don't hold that direct understanding of God that Jesus offers us through coming to live in this world as one of us. And so the gift I think that we have is, yes, we can agree that there's several different ways, but for us, the way that's important is the life of Jesus Christ. That's the example, and that's what we have to live by. And that is, to me, the gift that we have through our Swedenborgian tradition, but beyond that, the gift that Jesus offers us, that we can know God. We don't have to go through a priest to understand God. We don't have to go through an intermediary. God is directly available to us, and this is truly a gift. So as you spend time on this picture on the front of your bulletin is one that has meant a lot to me. It's actually a photograph of a picture that I saw when I went to a Catholic retreat center. This picture of Jesus working as a carpenter. And to me, it makes it very special and very dear, because he seems very, very real. So spend some time with Jesus and offering up yourself to open up to understand what Jesus has for us and the gifts that being a Christian brings. And on the back is daily food for thought if you want each day of the week. It's just a verse from Swedenborg that you can contemplate and to live your life.